Alright, hello everyone, and welcome to the 6 hours of Imola here with ACM Racing. This race is part of the 2026 Endurance Series. It's currently 10 minutes left of qualifying. We have a greasy track at the moment and 38 cars on the grid. Of course, it is scheduled to rain throughout the majority of this race, but of course liable to ACC weather changes. We may not get full wet the entire time. Of course, it is greasy at the moment. I think most drivers are on the dry tyre, of course, struggling in the conditions nevertheless, but it should be a good race in the rain nevertheless. So 6 hours of Imola coming up. We're in qualifying at the moment. 10 minutes in, 10 minutes to go. We'll be having a look at the action. Of course, if you are watching and you are from part of a team, or you are watching on behalf of a team, and you'd like us to switch over to a specific driver or a specific team, then let us know at any point and we will do so. Just sign into Twitch here. Cool. So currently we have Sebastian Picano at the moment in the number 322 BMW at the top of the charts with 142.387. Of course, in the greasy conditions like this is a very fast lap time set by Sebastian. He's set a fastest Sector 1, Sector 2 and Sector 3, so they're currently the fastest track on by quite a way. 4 tenths above Vincenzo Senatore, who is in the number 164 Aston Martin at the moment. They are on a 142.785. They're just about to start a new fast lap. And we'll be seeing what they can pull off this lap. As I said, they're only about 4 tenths down from P1 at the moment. Of course, plenty of time to be gained in Imola in these grease conditions. It is not the easiest. You have to be quite tentative on the throttle, as I'm sure you heard out of the exit of turn 1 there. But of course, the Aston Martin and BMW, very strong cars here at Imola, so we'll be seeing what they can pull off. P3, Stanislav Kartovic in a Nissan, actually, for this race. It's currently set a 142.952. Very fast lap time in that Nissan, especially because it's a Nissan, but Stanislav Kartovic is one of the fastest drivers in ACM, the third fastest we have on our leaderboards. Currently set in 142.952. As I said, 5 tenths down from P1, but plenty of time to be gained. They are currently on a fast lap, and we'll be seeing what they can gain from this lap. But of course, the Nissan is another strong car here at Imola, so we'll be seeing what they can do throughout the entire race. Chris Davis for the CRT Mustang, currently in P4. The number 69 Mustang is about to finish their fast lap. They're only 3 tenths down at the moment. They'll be starting a new lap and seeing where they can come on this one. In P5, Antonio for the DMF course, number 200 Ferrari, is coming round to complete a fast lap. They are 4 tenths down on their PB at the moment, so no change in position will be made for P5 at the moment. But of course, they do have another 6 minutes left qualifying, so we'll be doing another lap nevertheless. Rosario Piazza for the Tempo Esports number 16 Ferrari is in P6 at the moment. They are currently on a fast lap, about 1/10 up on their lap. They're about 1 second back from the fastest time we have on track with the 147.450. The Tempo Esports Ferrari, though, is of course a very fast team here at ACM. We've seen them win multiple endurance races before, so we'll be seeing what they can do throughout the rest of this race. I have no doubt that Ferrari is of course struggling a little bit in these conditions, so hopefully we will see some more action from them in the race. They are backing off a little bit to leave some more space for their next fast lap. They are waiting on the final corners to potentially start a fast lap in the gap that they have. Now we'll be keeping an eye on them throughout this qualifying session to see what they can do. P8 is held at the moment by Tom Morris-Jones, another very fast driver here at ACM. The number 812 Mustang for Chava Racing is in P8 at the moment, 143.452, so only 2/1000ths of a second slower than the number 16 Ferrari we were just on. It seems like he's on a slow lap at the moment, weaving about, heating up those tyres or trying to get some heat into those tyres before he goes on another fast lap. P9 is Amir Bunar in the Emil Frey Racing number 95 Ferrari. Emil Amir currently has a 143.450, so only about 9 hundredths of a second slower than P7 and P8, so there's plenty of time and positions to be gained there. But the number 95 Ferrari currently on a fast lap, only about 8 tenths down on the lap though, so no improvements on this run. P10 is Daniel Blair for the Beach Team Aston Martin Racing Team, number 420. Aston Martin we have there on a fast lap at the moment, currently has a 143.657 next to their name, 3 tenths up from that time at the moment. They did just lose a couple tenths out of that corner though. They're currently predicted to be promoted into P9, potentially into P8 as well. So we'll be seeing what they can do throughout the rest of the lap. They're getting caught up a little bit there by the BMW though. BMW is giving themselves room now, which is good. So this number 420 Aston Martin coming through the final 2 corners, braking at the 100-meter board, trying to get the grip on the final apexes. Does so nicely, not using too much of the curb as it can be quite slippery, sticking to the apex as tight as possible, not getting onto the gravel on the exit and getting a smooth run out in towards the start finish straight. 2 tenths up at the lap at the moment, potentially an improvement to P7 as they cross the line. They improve to P9, only 1/100th of a second slower than P7. A very fast lap time from Daniel Blair, of course, very close to being promoted to P7, but Daniel will be going out for another attempt at that spot. P10, of course, was Amir Boonhart, who we saw, who was just demoted back down into P10, but they're on a fast lap at the moment, so we'll be seeing what they can do. That's all for the top 10. Of course, moving further down the grid, we have some big improvers out there at the moment. Ukas Rashka in the number 78 Aston Martin is currently 3 tenths up on their lap time. That will promote them into P11, potentially into P10, so we'll be seeing what they can do as they come round the final few corners. Usmanov in the number 111 BMW was on a fast lap. They were about 8 tenths up on their lap, but they did unfortunately invalidate at the final, the corner that they were just at. So unfortunately they will not be improving on this lap, but they do have a lot of potential to improve. And of course 8 tenths is a significant amount. Oliver Flynn in the Project Low-Key number 121 Lamborghini is on a fast lap at the moment, 3 tenths up on his lap time of 144.855. He has a potential to improve up into P19 here, potentially P18, but we're seeing what they can do as they cross the line. I do apologise if anyone's liveries are not loaded. I did just sync right before hopping on the stream, so unfortunately if your livery is not in the high detail, there has been an issue with it being uploaded, but hopefully that gets resolved for the next race. But up at the top, Senatore now only 7/100ths of a second back from P1. He's set at 142.462 compared to P1's 142.387, so literally 0.075 of a second between those. Vincenzo at the moment on a fast lap, 2 tenths up on that fast lap, so has the potential to improve into P1. Comes through the tight chicane here in towards sector 3, exits nicely, a little bit unsettled on the second chicane, but no major worries there. Getting the slipstream from the blue flagged BMW in front, braking at the 100-meter board, as I said, trying to get that apex hooked in nicely, which they do, not using too much of the exit curb, hooking again against the apex and not running out onto the gravel. Done very nicely there by Vincenzo. Comes through the final corner, unfortunately has lost 2 tenths of the improvement time that they had through those 2 corners, so they'll be looking for another improvement that they can make. It seems like though they have ended this qualifying section for the number 164 Aston Martin. Return to garage, stuck in P2, and that seems like it will be the top 4 rounded out for this race. 30 seconds remaining of qualifying. Chris Davis is currently on a lap, about halfway through the lap at the moment. They're on a fast lap, no improvement currently on the Delta, but there's a potential to be made through these corners here on the chicane, cutting as much of the sausage curb as possible and not using too much of the slippery exit curb. Of course, in these greasy track conditions, the curbs are lethal. Mustang doing well though, 200ths of a second up on their lap at the moment, not enough to improve into P4, but coming through the final few corners, hooking it up nicely to the apex, running wide on the curb, hooking up nicely to the apex again and not using too much of the exit. They're about 1/10 up on their lap at the moment, and wow, look at that. Piazza has shot up into P1. I was saying keep an eye on Tempo Esports Ferrari, and they have done exactly as I predicted. Shot up into P1, 142.3 7 thousandths of a second faster than Picano in P2, stealing that top spot from Picano right before the end of the qualifying session there. So a very strong lap from Rosario there, and a good pat on the back that he will be deserving. Antonio, for the DMF course number 200, Ferrari is still out on track at the moment. They're only 2 thousandths of a second down on the lap time, so it seems like there will be no improvement made on this lap. Tom Morris-Jones was also on a fast lap, but has decided to end the qualifying session there for themselves. That's going to be an ending in P9, potentially a P10 if there is a further improvement by Raska. Raska currently has 4 tenths up on their lap time, which is potentially going to put them into P9, P10 position. We will be seeing as they come through the final few corners, hooking up the apex curb nicely, running wide, not onto the gravel, getting a good exit, 5 tenths up, 5.5 tenths up on their lap. They're going to be crossing the line, certainly in the top 10, keeping it tight, trying to gain as much time as possible. Crossing the line, ended up in P8, demoting Tom Morris-Jones down into P10, but ending a fantastic session for the number 78 Aston Martin, pulling off to the side, returning to garage and getting themselves prepared for the race. That was the qualifying session for today's 6 hours of Imola. It's certainly going to be a wet start today. You can see by the weather forecast that at the top right, it's going to be very heavy rain at the start of this race. Then 10 minutes or half an hour in, it's going to slow down slightly to be a light rain. But hopefully throughout the rest of this race, we should have a strong rain throughout. So the starting grid is ready. I'm going to wish luck to everyone on the grid. And we will be ready to go for this race. So that's the grid. It's lining up at the moment with the Tempo Ferrari on the P1 spot. That is this car right here. I'm going to get a better angle for this grid run. Apologies for any fast camera movement here. But as you can see, the grid is lined up and ready to go here at a wet Imola. Starting with a Ferrari in P1. Rare car to see being very good here at Imola. Generally, the BMW, Aston Martins, Nissans, Mustangs, etc. Are doing quite well. As you can see, P2, BMW, P3, Aston Martin, P4, Nissan, and P5 is a Mustang. But the Ferrari Tempo Esports, as I said, very strong team. They've got some very fast drivers in that team. Managed to pull off that lap time at the end there, secured themselves into P1 and is now ready to head off the start of this race. We'll be heading around into the formation lap very soon. About 1 minute left of the pre-race wait time. We'll be seeing what happens throughout this race. Of course, if you are part of a team, you want me to switch to their team and commentate over them for a bit, just let me know and I will do so. I'll be commentating for about the first hour of this race. We'll be seeing how much action there is as to whether I continue, and potentially some at the end as well, of course, depending on the action on grid. We should be setting off into a formation lap very soon now. Top down run through of the grid. Plenty of Mustangs out there. Ferrari on the right, Aston Martin, Mustang, another Aston Martin. Plenty of nice liveries out here as well. I did load the liveries just before this race started, so of course if there are any which are missed out, I do apologise, but of course I did sync them. Alright, heading back into a spectator camera as we are ready for this formation lap to start. Rosario Piazza will be leading off the pack, ready for a formation lap. I'm fairly certain that it will be on wet tyres for the start of this race, as it would be considerably dangerous to go on dry tyres in this weather, but of course if someone was, we will certainly find out at turn 1. Hopefully there's no turn 1 collisions or pile-ups. I did stress to the driver to do take care out there, but hopefully we should be clean. 6 hours of racing is about to go underway. This is of course part of the 2026 Endurance Series. This race is held by ACM Racing We host endurance races every weekend for 6 weeks straight, followed by a break weekend, followed by another 6 weeks of endurance racing. So we have plenty on offer here at ACM. Next weekend we got a full grid at Nordschleife for another 6-hour race there. There's a 4 times time multiplier on that one, so it's going to be a full 24-hour race in just 6. As I said, 90 cars signed up, so it's going to be a full grid at Nordschleife. It's going to be certainly a hectic turn 1, but it'll be a good one to watch nevertheless. That's next week. Week after, we're back at Imola for another 12-hour race. That will be in support of the air ambulance service. It is part of the 2026 fundraiser endurance series, as part of a fundraiser for the charity, the air ambulance service, and a fantastic charity to raise money for. Currently predicted to be about 40 on grid for that one. So of course, if you want to join in, you want to get your team on the grid, and of course you want to donate to charity, check back in 2 weeks' time, and you will see us back at Imola for that race. Weekend after that, we are at the Nürburgring GP circuit. It's the next round of the 2026 Endurance Series. That one is a 7-hour race of Nürburgring, of course. This one is slightly different. It does have the cars restricted to those manufactured before 2019, so the Nissans, the Hondas, the Aston Martin V12s, etc. will all be taking part in that race, and of course our ears will be blessed by that noise that comes from it, but it'll be a fun race nevertheless. 7 hours of the Nürburgring GP circuit. That's the 25th of April that takes place on. Heading into May then, we have 4 hours of Hungaroring, which is the round after next of the 2026 Endurance Series. That one was announced just today, so of course the sign-ups are taking place for that one. Of course, if you do want to get involved with ACM, acm-racing.com is where you can find all of the events, all of the information about racing, as well as the leaderboards and stuff, etc. Someone's asked for the Ferrari number 44. I don't see a Ferrari number 44 on my leaderboard, I believe. Oh, no, we got it in P12. That's Zhao Ray for the Valkyrie Performance Ferrari there. They are in P12. As I said, strong position to be in for this race. Of course, it's a wet one. You can see the windscreen wipers going on full speed there as the grid is lining up in double file. They'll be on the outside for turn 1. Potentially a dangerous place to be, but also less dangerous than the inside of turn 1. So hopefully they get through the first corner carefully. Of course, it is raining today, so we are expecting a few incidents, but hopefully no carnage into the first corner. They are lining up side by side now, though. Tempo Esports will be setting the pace and will be hammering the throttle as soon as that light goes green. You can see all of the cars lining up behind. We'll switch to the TV2 camera for the start of this race. It should be any second now. Green light, cars are underway, pedal to the metal. The number 16 of Tempo Esports has gotten away from the BMW there. Will be taking the outside line into the first corner. Braked very early there. Of course, in the rain, the braking points are different, but the top 5 or so have got through the first few corners carefully. They're going to be going round on towards Sector 2 now. Further down, Tom Morris-Jones having a little bit of difficulty on the exit of that curb there, but has found himself in a comfortable position on the outside now. It seems like there's been no major contact. There's a little bit of major contact at the rear there, it seems, but hopefully everyone is getting back going. It seems like it was a clean start of the race, which is rare for Imola wet. We've got a battle at the moment for P3. Vincenzo Senatore battling with Picano in front. You can see the BMW just in front of that Aston Martin. He's got a little bit of pressure behind from Stanislav Kartovic as well, but Senatore is hungry for that P2 position. Of course, you can see the Tempo Esports Ferrari just in front of them as well. BMW now applying that pressure as they go through the middle of Sector 2 here, heading into Sector 3 as well, heading towards the chicane next. Interesting place to be on the inside there. They might have to back out before this corner, but we'll keep on board with Vincenzo Senatore to see what happens here. It could be a BMW promotion into P1. There's a little bit of contact there between P2 and P1. The BMW did go wide on the exit of that corner, potentially taking too much curb. We're 3 wide at the moment. Subbing down into P2 goes the Tempo Esports. Vincenzo Senatore taking out the lead from that one there. The BMW nearly run into the side of P1 there. The Tempo Esports Ferrari getting pushed slightly wide on the entrance to that corner. So it is Senatore leading the field as a result of the action at the end of the first lap there. The number 164 Aston Martin is about 1 second ahead of Picano now, so certainly benefiting quite a bit from the battling that took place there. Sebastian Picano Of course, in P2 now for that BMW, potentially going to be gaining a penalty for the overtake though. The Tempo Esports Ferrari making contact with that Nissan there as well. That's given Picano a 1 second gap over the Nissan. We'll jump on board with the Nissan to see what's going on behind. Chris Davis in the Mustang is following behind the Nissan. You can see the Mustang with its red eyes there, looking evil as always. Slight look to the inside there, but no move made from Chris Davis. Of course, it's the start of an endurance race. There's no need for silly dives. So taking it well and making a successful start of the race. Biggest position gainers since the start of this race, of course, does go to Mazurek down in P15 at the moment. The car number 340 has gained 6 positions since the start of this race. Started in P21, now up in P15, so a very strong start for the number 340 car. Jumping back up to the front of the grid, there's a little bit of a battle still between Chris Davis and Stanislav Kartovic. It is Nissan versus Mustang for this one. A little bit of a look to the inside, but no dive will be made on towards that one. Both taking as much of that curb as they can. Mustang benefiting slightly more from being able to take that. Nissan, though, getting a better exit. Trying to get that clear air, of course, in the spray from these cars in the rain. It's going to be quite difficult to get a clear visibility, but it seems like that Mustang knows the track well. Following behind that Nissan closely. Out of the final corner to finish off the second lap of this race, it's going to be Senatore crossing the line once again in P1, 1.5 seconds advantage to Picano in P2. You can see the P2 BMW in the background there. Picano, of course, does have a 1.6 second advantage to Kartovic. Behind Kartovic is battling a little bit with Chris Davis, so of course is losing a slight bit of time as a result. Nothing too major though. Chris Davis is putting on that pressure. We'll keep our eye on things to see if there is any position change between these guys. You can see the Tempo Esports Ferrari in the background, driven by Rosario Piazza, dropped down from P1 due to a few battles that happened at the start. But they are still in a strong position in P5, plenty of time to be gained to the ones in front. And they're in a little bit of a defending position for P5 at the moment. Luca Butol in the ISS Racing Team, number 155 Mustang behind, is putting pressure on Piazza, but he's under pressure themselves from the number 44 Joao Ray Valka Performance Ferrari. That Ferrari certainly putting on the pressure to that Mustang, trying to squeeze every gap they can out of it. Looking to the outside of that corner, not going to be a position gain side by side through there, particularly not in the rain. A little bit of contact under braking for that right hander there, but no major impact caused. It's going to be a drag race down to the chicane, but the Mustang will of course win that one. Both braking at a reasonable point at the start of that curb, taking as much of the curb as they can on the chicane, getting a clean exit, trying not to use too much of that slippery curb on exit, but managing to get a good one nevertheless. That Mustang once again going to pull away on that straight due to the acceleration that it has, but Joao Ray, monstrous dive down the inside there of the Mustang and potentially over revving the Ferrari a little bit there, but that was the position gained into P6 by Joao Ray there. A very strong position gain from themselves, and also taking a advantage over a slow Tempo Esports Ferrari there as well. So in the space of 3 or 4 laps, or 3 or 4 corners, sorry, Joao Ray, number 44 Ferrari, has promoted themselves into P5 from P7. Of course, Joao Ray did start this race in P12, is now in P5, so that's 7 positions gained since the start of this race for the Valkyrie Performance Team. Very strong results for these guys so far, so we'll see if they keep that going throughout the race. Further back, Aidan Tan for the Hobbyculture Racing Evo and the Aston Martin is putting on some pressure onto Piazza. Piazza, of course, did start in P1. I think they are on dry tyres though, which of course is an interesting choice during the wet, but of course it's working for them just as well. A dive has been made by the Aston Martin, nothing to be of profit there. It's side by side on the exit though. The ISS Racing Team Mustang, the blue one just behind, is looking to gain out of this as well. You can see a few side-by-side cars just behind as well. Of course, we are 7 minutes into this race so far, still plenty of battling going on, and I predict this will continue for quite a bit of time. The leaders, of course, you can see on the right hand side of your screens on the track map, have managed to gain themselves quite a bit separation between the rest of the field, but of course the mid-pack is certainly racing very closely. That's of course led by Joao Ray in number 44 Ferrari. Currently 1.5 seconds above Piazza, but is of course 6 seconds back from Chris Davis. So we'll be keeping an eye on these gaps, see if anything closes up even more. I think Piazza is certainly struggling on those dry tyres in the wet. It's a very interesting choice to go on the dry tyres. Of course, they might be trying to go for the lighter rain that is coming in 10 minutes or so, where they will be rocket ships if the rain clears up. Of course, not doing too badly on these dry tyres. I'm pretty sure Rosario Piazza would have put in plenty of practice for this race, particularly in the changing conditions. Of course, something you have to factor in for a wet race. How long will it stay wet? Wet is variable. Could be puddles, could not be puddles. It could be slippery curbs, could not be slippery curbs. So, of course, the more practice that is put in for these, the better. Seems like the Aston Martin is going for a dive, though. That is Tan going into P6. A very successful overtake there, making a dive down the inside of turn 1, trying to keep that position on the exit, and they will be doing so nicely. The ISS Racing team, Luca Butol Mustang, is trying to gain on the Ferrari as well, having to actually back out and lose the position to Bagari, who took that position instead. That's a promotion into P8 for them, but all down in P9 now. Piazza in the Tempo Esports Ferrari getting a little less pressure put on them due to a half-second gap now placed. Further back, there's a bit of tussling and jostling for positions. That's Tom Morris-Jones in the middle of that battle, losing out a few places there from P11 into P13. Tom Morris-Jones trying to keep it consistent in that Mustang, but nothing going wrong majorly so far, which is good. There's been a position change up front as well. Bagari has gained that place from Piazza, so it seems like Piazza is certainly struggling on those dry tyres and is begging for that lighter rain to come soon. It seems like it'll be even lighter rain in half an hour as well, so it could be a potentially strong position for the number 16 Ferrari. We'll be seeing how much this rain decreases over the next few minutes or so. Further up, we can see that Bagari is still looking for a position change on the number 23 of Tan in front. The Tan going slightly wide on that corner there. It's going to be side by side through the final corner over the curbs for the Ferrari, so potentially losing out a little bit of time there. And you can see now getting the slipstream down in towards turn 1. Aston Martin with that massive wing does give off a good slipstream, but it'll be a drag race down towards this turn 1. It seems like there'll be no position change unless there's a huge dive from Bagari. Seems like they're keeping it safe and sensible though. Both make it to the first corner nicely. Good apex from the Aston Martin in front. Good exit speed from Bagari as well, so potentially a battle to keep our eye on here. But yeah, in the Manthey Racing number 310 Porsche is now battling with the Tempo Esports Piazza. That's a very old Porsche there from Boucher. An interesting choice to go for in a wet race here at Imola, but it's good to see it doing so well in the strong hands of Boucher. Following nose to tail now, going to be looking to the inside of the Tempo Esports Ferrari. Going to be not quite close enough to guarantee themselves some space. We'll go side by side. Tempo Esports, number 16 Ferrari, has left them adequate room in that corner though. The position was gained by Boucher. You can see that Ferrari just sliding there on exit, not able to gain that grip that they need in those dry tyres. They're begging for that rain to stop that sun to come out, but it will only decrease slightly. Another position change, Luca Butol is struggling slightly in that Mustang, having a side-by-side battle with Morris-Jones at the moment. It's going to be side-by-side contact into the chicane there. Both cars can't go into a corner that tight, and it seems like Morris-Jones might actually gain an advantage out of that. Of course, it will be down to the stewards to look at that, but of course, it seems like that position was gained afterwards. Luca Butol now down in P13, running wide on that corner as well, potentially losing more positions. That's the BMW and a Mustang past. That's Usmanov and Webby, which have gone into P13 and P14. Butol having a difficult time in that Mustang, needs to just refresh the mind and keep it going strong. Matthias Pallenberg now looking for a position gain on Piazza, taking the inside line in towards turn 1. Managing to gain that position nicely. That's into P9 now for Pallenberg. Piazza dropping back into P10, is now under pressure of course from the P11 car, the BMW. Trying to keep a handle on this car. Rain still not letting off though, still seeming like it's going to be on how it is for at least the next few minutes. Chris Davis still putting pressure on Kartovic. We'll jump on the POV of the Mustang here. You can see the Nissan just in front, trying to get that gap between the Nissan and the Mustang, but not able to get it slightly. We are 7 laps into this race so far, so Chris Davis will of course be looking to put himself on the podium, taking that Nissan's P3 position. Further above though, P1, 2 are fairly separated from everyone else. P1 is 4.4 seconds in front of P2, and P2 is 6 seconds in front of P3. So you can see on the minimap on the right hand side, plenty of gap that is safe there for those guys, and of course these guys are only in a slightly small battle as well. Down in P11, still trying to gain off of Piazza there. Rain is still not relenting, so that Ferrari is struggling on those tyres. Adam for the team WRT number 113 BMW, trying to get the good exit on the Ferrari here. There'll be a drag race down in towards turn 1. Piazza choosing to defend the inside of this straight. Darting out to the right hand side of the track, and it could be a position gain before they even reach turn 1 here. Going to be an earlier braking point for the Ferrari there on those dry tyres, needing as much grip as possible. Putting some pressure back on that BMW though, but unfortunately it seems like they'll now be under pressure from the Mustang as well. That's the Mustang of Maurice Jones looking for that position now, braking into this chicane. A stronger exit for the Mustang, having to let off slightly to not run into the rear of the Ferrari. Trying to gain as much time on exit. And there's a position change back for Chris Davis and Kartovic up in P3. Chris Davis did seemingly make a move there onto Kartovic, and is making one again side by side into this chicane. We did see on the previous lap that the position can't be fought side by side through this corner. Seems like there's potentially a blue flag that's behind these guys as well. I'm not sure entirely which number that is behind, but they are looking for move clearly side by side or front and back, single file through the final few corners. Chris Davis trying to get a better exit on Kartovic here. Kartovic defending that P3 position like his life depends on it, and of course P3 position here at Imola. First hour in, plenty of time to be coming, so not too dangerous for these guys to maintain their positions, but it seems like Chris Davis is gaining on this straight. Down into turn 1, braking at a similar point. Lots of time gained by Chris Davis there. Don't think they'll be making turn 1. Nope. End up spinning round as a result. They'll be off the track now, rejoining. Plenty of time lost out of that, and Zhao Ray is actually gaining out of that as well. They're up in P4 now, 5 seconds back from Kartovic. Chris Davis, overly ambitious dive there into turn 1, not having enough grip on those tyres. Potentially locking up in towards turn 1, going too fast down the inside, running over some curbs, and the back end locking up and spinning them out. But they got it going again, and of course they have about 6 seconds or so to gain back towards P3. So Chris Davis unfortunately not able to make a move there, but still in a strong position in P5. Further back, Aiden Tan is still looking for a position gain on Bagari, 0.4 seconds back from Bagari at the moment. Further down in P17, there's been a change for that position there. Paul Izzy has gained that place in P17. There's a position gain there for Steg as well. Rosenboom losing out quite significantly out of the exit of that corner, dropping down into P18. This team did, of course, start in P17, so only dropped 1 place since the start, but they did have a few positions up on their spot before that corner. Seeing what they can recover throughout the rest of this first hour, though. Further back, it seems like there's a yellow flag as well. I think that's Hamza Badir that's going slowly. Yes, it is on the exit of the light section there. Heading in towards the chicane now as well. Seems like they've covered racing nicely, so they're in P22 at the moment. They have started in P35, so they are gaining since the start of this race, but of course they did have a slight mishap there, causing them to lose out a few more positions. Gaps are certainly very close throughout this race. Of course, in the rain, the gaps do maintain themselves a lot more than they do in the dry. Murano, another DMF course, Ferrari in P29 at the moment, started in P28, so did drop one since the start of this race, but is looking to gain back those places on Vaktarik in the number 88 BMW in front, who is also putting some pressure on Coleman just in front of that. Coleman is another Nissan which is on this grid for this race, so another interesting choice there. Going slightly too wide on the exit of that corner, getting unsteady on the gravel and gaining that position goes the BMW Vectoric up into P27, potentially going to give Murano in the DMF course Ferrari a run down into turn 1 as well. We'll jump onto Helicam to see what they can do. Getting the slipstream down. Seems like that Nissan is actually pulling away now. The Ferrari braking slightly early for that corner there. The gap being brought back out. And even running wide there goes the Ferrari. I have a feeling these guys are on the dry tyre as well, so potentially being at a disadvantage. There's a position change in P22-21 as well. The Audi in front has just dropped down into P22. Hamza Badir did gain back that position. Of course, we saw Hamza Badir have a few mistakes. Was a yellow flag on the lap prior. This is, of course, now gaining those positions back. Running wide on that corner though, potentially losing out on a place there, having to rejoin on the inside of that corner on the racing line, potentially something to be looked at by the stewards after the race, but for now, nothing too major. Saglin Ben is looking for a gain on Chuchdev in front, the Audi of course, not a sight that you see often in ACC, but of course the Audi is doing quite well in P22-21 at the moment. Further up the grid, Tom Morris-Jones still putting pressure on P10, gaining on that position into the braking zone. Braking much later than the BMW and gaining quite significantly out of it. That puts himself up into P10. It seems like he had a mistake or an incident which has dropped him slightly since the start of this race, but he is looking to gain back those positions. Jan Bashir is in a little bit of a haggle of cars at the moment. Is looking for some position gains. Is in P8 at the moment, 0.3 seconds back from Bagari. Bagari, of course, putting the pressure on Aidan Tan in front. In front of these guys, Aidan Tan is about 6 seconds back from Chris Davis. Chris Davis is looking to put pressure back onto Jao Ray in the number 44 Valkyrie Performance Ferrari. Of course, those guys did gain that position. There's a little bit of side-by-side contact there. Jan Bashir managing to gain both of those positions as a result of Aidan Tan running wide on the corner there. So that is Jan Bashir in the old Porsche up into P6 at the moment. 7 seconds to gain towards Chris Davis, who is looking to gain P5 on Jao Ray. Gary putting pressure back on Bashir as well. Jumping back down the grid, Usmanov, number 111 BMW, putting pressure on number 17, number 141 McLaren. The position fight for P17 at the moment. P17, the number 141 McLaren in front, has gained 8 positions since the start of this race. Getting very slidey on that corner though. Going to be a little side-by-side action down the start-finish straight as we head now. The number 111 obviously trying to gain back that position that he's fighting for, jostling backwards and forwards. The number 111 Usmanov did start in P15, so he's trying to gain back that position into P17. He's looking like they have the straight line speed. It's going to be a battle of who breaks latest into turn 1. There's a bit of side-by-side contact there. McLaren having to go wide and off track. We'll see where they rejoin. They rejoin just at the side of that BMW, so it's going to be a resumption of that battle. Seems like the McLaren will have to cede that place though, unfortunately. Now under pressure from the Mustang behind as well. I have no doubt they'll be trying to put the pressure on the BMW though. They've potentially got two ambiguous there into that one, running wide of the corner and losing quite a significant amount of time on the exit there. There's now 1 second gap between Usmanov and Kovaliski. Tom Morris-Jones still battling for that P10 position, gained it about a lap earlier, but is now in P10 still again. There was a position change for that spot just a corner ago. It seems like there's potentially a yellow flag there as well, but it is still P10 for Maurice Jones. Nagy behind is trying to put some pressure back on. 0.6 seconds exists between those two at the moment. You can see the BMW on the left hand side of the track there. Chris Davis still trying to put pressure on the Valkyrie Performance Ferrari up front. You can see the gain in time as they head towards the first corner, using as much of the apex as they can. The Mustang, of course, being able to use a lot more than the Ferrari here at Imola. They head through the Villeneuve corners. Ferrari still maintains its position. There's a blue flag there, potentially causing contact with the faster car. It'll be one for the stewards to look at there regarding who was at fault, but Chris Davis once again having to regain himself composure and get back to racing. Is now under pressure from Jan Bashir in the Porsche just behind, so certainly one that the stewards will be looking at now. Further towards the rear of the grid, there's been a position change for P29. Mazurek has gained themselves a place into Vectoric's P28 position. We'll jump on board with Vectoric at the moment. Looking to gain back that place as they head towards Tamburello, the first corner now. Looking towards the outside, looking towards the inside, potentially late on the brakes here, but nope, decides to stick to the normal braking point. The Ferrari potentially going wide here. Both cars getting a slightly wide apex, but both maintaining their positions. Drag race down towards the Villeneuve chicane now though. Both cars running potentially too fast into there. Vectoric actually losing slightly bit there by touching the gravel on the outside. Now under pressure from the Ferrari of SIL&D for A, of course, Ferrari's number 50. Adamczyk as well is putting pressure on Rosenboom. This is for P19 at the moment. Adamczyk starting in P23 has gained 3 positions since the start of this race and is looking for the 4th position as they head through the final 2 corners at Ravazza. Zach Webb looking for a position gain on the Tempo Esports Ferrari. Rain has subsided a little bit since we were last on board with the Tempo Esports Ferrari, but of course still not quite enough for those dry tyres to be utilised. Garza has dropped 12 places since the start of this race. Of course, starting in P1 is now down in P13. Zach Webb going super wide on the exit there, maintaining his position though. A little bit of a tap on the rear from the Tempo Esports Ferrari, nothing too major. They take the fast left-hander Piratella. Nothing too major through there. Ferrari going slightly wide but not gaining track limits violation. There's been a position change for Bagari and Tan up front, keeping it side by side, going single file now as they head over the curbs. The Aston Martin, of course, will be able to take those curbs a lot better than that Ferrari will, but it's going to be single file down towards the final 2 corners there. Bagari did, of course, gain that position in the Acrominerali section of the track, able to utilise much more of those curbs than the Ferrari is, so trying to keep that apex tight, getting the exit speed, and now trying to gain the slipstream. The Ferrari seems to be pulling away from the Aston Martin though. I don't think there'll be a position change in towards turn 1. Of course, the slipstream in the rain is a lot less efficient than it is in other weather conditions, but it still has a little bit of an effect. Nothing too major, not major enough for Eden Tan to gain back that time on the Ferrari. Ferrari getting a very unsteady through the first corners there. Aston Martin now directly on the rear, looking to apply pressure on the Ferrari. Ferrari having to take an outside line into the Villeneuve chicane. Going to be potentially a dive down the outside here for Tan, looking to gain back the P7 position that they lost a lap prior. Drag race now down up towards Piratella. Breaking into the fast left-hander, the Aston Martin had the advantage heading into the apex, but potentially had to back out a little bit more to not run into the back of the Ferrari. Both trying to keep it within track limits there. Of course, the weather decreasing in rain is going to be a lot more dangerous and a lot more difficult to maintain track limits. Both managing to do so through the Variante Alta chicane there, though. We'll jump further back onto Piazza. Of course, he is in P13 at the moment. P12, Zach Webb just in front. Piazza did start in P1, of course, did drop down a few positions. The dry tyres will be starting to more come in favour now as they head towards the drier track. Piazza potentially gaining back those positions. Of course, plenty of time they have to gain back into P1 though, so it's going to be quite a significant loss from those dry tyres, but unfortunately that is the way it is. Batol looking to gain positions as well, nothing too significant at the moment, just looking to stay on the rear of the two in front and gain any scraps which drop. There's a blue flag in front on the left hand side of the track there. Hopefully I'll get through the first corner safely. Blue flag just allowing these guys to get through before taking the corner himself. That's exactly how it should be done. Batol now under pressure from Vostek Steg behind actually. Steg 0.4 back from Batol. Trying to keep it tight to the apexes, but not able to do too much there. Of course, on the left hand side of your screens as well, you can see the impact of penalties on this race. Aiden Tan currently has a 10-second penalty awarded to himself. Of course, that'll be served when he does a pit stop next, and that is, of course, pretty significant. It'll drop him back out of the P10, out of the top 10 positions, so potentially going to be losing out quite significantly. He is the highest up that has a penalty at the moment, followed by Pallenberg, who has a 5-second penalty. That'll drop them no places currently at the moment. Potentially going to drop some in the future. Of course, these times will change when it comes to the pit stops. We have a 65-minute stint timer active on today's race, so the cars have to come into the pit lane before driving for longer than 65 minutes, otherwise they get a drive-through penalty. So within the next 35 minutes we'll be seeing the entire grid head into the pit lane and of course change potentially drivers, but certainly change tyres over. We won't be heading to dries most likely. It does show at the moment it'll be drizzling in half an hour. But of course I have no doubt that weather will go back up to rain throughout the hour stint, so we'll be seeing what drivers choose to go with. Pavelski, number 141 McLaren at the moment, putting pressure on P20 Rosenboom. Rosenboom defending that P20 position. They started in P17, so has dropped a few positions since the start of this race. So of course we'll be looking to maintain that position as much as they can. Braking much later into turn 1, potentially running too wide though in the McLaren, not able to take those sausage curbs as much as the Mustang is, so getting very unsteady through the corners there. Has dropped back to 0.7 seconds back from Rosenboom at the moment. You can see the McLaren all over the road in this weather. Not the nicest car in the rain, but Pavelski certainly making it work. Morano also looking to gain or put pressure on positions, still putting on pressure for Coleman in front. Coleman, of course, in the Nissan, so of course a rare car to see, but we do have two of them on the grid today. The Ferrari is certainly putting pressure on that Nissan. The Nissan holding out strong at the moment though. Getting very unsteady on the exit of that corner though. It's going to be side by side into Tursa as they both head into that corner. Nissan getting slightly unsteady on the rear of their car, but it seems like the Aston Martin it's the leading Aston Martin that's going through there. I was wondering why it looked so familiar. So this is the leader now lapping the rear of the grid already. We're only half an hour into this race and it's already started to happen. So it just shows you the impact of rain. It certainly splits the men from the boys in this one. As you can see, the faster cars making the most of this time. The Nissan's certainly struggling in this weather. Is all over the place at the moment, but we'll be keeping our eye on things to make sure they keep it all okay. Zach Webb in the pit lane at the moment. This is a very early change for Zach Webb. Of course, the stint timer didn't require them to be in for at least another half an hour. Of course, Zach Webb going in now, potentially changing themselves over to dry tyres for this hour. They are confident in the drizzle for the next half an hour, so they'll be trying to maintain their time on that, potentially gain some time on others. Valsky seems like they did get past Rosenboom. Now up into P18, Rosenboom, P19, of course, with the pit stops of Zach Webb, they've also gained a position. That's why those numbers have changed. Usmanov just had to lose a position as well. Hamza Badir in the Ferrari, just in front of this Audi, did gain the position, so potentially a mistake or loss of control for that BMW. Steg and Button having a battle at the moment. Wojtek Steg following behind the number 155 Mustang. Keeping it tight to these apexes. Not having the most speed on the exit that corner there, so it's not going to be a position change into turn 1. The gaps down in P19 are still quite big. Rosenboom is looking to fight back that position that Valsky took just a few seconds ago. Adamczyk is also on for the next position gain. Usmanov in front in the 111 BMW. Looking to the inside, squeezing against the wall there, only just making it through. It's side by side in towards turn 1. They're both going to brake at a similar position. Slight bit of contact on entry, nothing too major though. The Aston Martin has the outside, will be able to hold it there nicely, and it seems that was the position gain for Adamczyk there, so very strong position gain there from the 666 Aston Martin. Piazza, of course, on the dry tyres, will now be looking for those positions that he lost at the start of the race to be gained back. Currently in P12, of course, started in P1, so of course has a lot of time to gain back. You see that the track map on the right hand side, the triangle, the number 164, is the P1 position, so there's basically half of the circuit for Piazza to gain back to his original spot, so it's going to be difficult for him, but I have no doubt that the number 16 Tempo Esports team will do it. Quite a bit of a Max Verstappen moment there as they head through the middle. Going to be around the outside into the final corner. Piazza making that move before they even reach the braking point. Running slightly wide into the gravel though. Potentially losing that position again to that BMW, and that is exactly what has happened. So over ambitious on the braking there. Running wide and losing out that position. BMW now pulling to the inside. Reducing the space that they have to cover. Piazza not going for the slipstream here. Braking earlier than the BMW. Of course, those dry tyres can't take it as well as the BMW's wet tyres can. Certainly getting a better exit out of that one though. Able to brake a lot later than the BMW and gaining that position up the inside though. Very nice position gain from Rosario now. Up into P10. That position has been gained. 10 more to go until P1. Do we reckon Tempo Esports number 16 it will do it by the end of the race? I reckon they will. Certainly a strong team, so certainly a lot of performance to be had. Further towards the rear of the grid, SI LND, one that we covered earlier, having a bit of a battle at the moment with Oliver Flynn, the low-key Lamborghini in front. In P34, maintaining his position at the moment, of course trying to defend from L&D behind. Tom Morris-Jones exiting the pit lane now as well, so they've done a pit stop, potentially changing on to a different set of tyres. Seems like Tom Morris-Jones has chosen the dry tyre for this second stint. Of course, changing the tyres early, making the most of this drizzle that's coming up. Trying to put some heat in the tyres at the moment. Running slightly wider than that second apex. Saglione, Antonio, the DMF course number 200 car, putting pressure on Kowalski now. Rosenboom unfortunately had to drop back a little bit from where they originally were. Of course, they were putting pressure on Kowalski, but they've dropped back. Ferrari versus McLaren. Ferrari has the slipstream down in towards turn 1. We'll be seeing if there's any position change as it goes now. The look to the inside, being covered off by the McLaren, but it's being resumed by Antonio. Antonio trying to get a better exit here, takes the wider line on the final part of turn 1 and makes that position gain. Very nicely done there from Antonio, keeping it calm into turn 1, keeping it tight into the second apex, and then taking the wider line, potentially the better line in this weather, and gaining the place on the straight. Ambitious move there from the number 141 McLaren, sending Antonio off the circuit. That'll certainly be a penalty for that McLaren coming up soon. Unfortunate to see after such a good overtake from Antonio there. Of course, they did drop back about 3 seconds as a result of that. So, of course, plenty of time was gained by Kowalski, but of course, gained illegally. The stewards will be looking at that. Penalties will be applied. And it's now a resumed battle between Rosenboom and Kowalski. Rosenboom did gain that position, but then went wide on the middle of Aqua Minerale, as had to give that position back to Kowalski. Kowalski now going through the apexes, actually by himself for once, which is something which hasn't happened in at least a few laps for Kowalski there. Luca Buttol in the ISS Racing Team Mustang. 0.5 seconds back from P11. Certainly putting the pressure on. I believe these guys still are on wet tyres as well, so as the track is heading towards being more damp, they will be less efficient. The Valka performance of Zhao Ray is actually now gaining on Kartovic. So they were originally obviously starting in P12. They've gained 8 positions since the start of this race, benefiting off of Chris Davis's spin earlier on, up into P4, and is now only 1 second back from Kartovic as well. Kartovic obviously in the Nissan up front, under some pressure by some blue flags trying to gain back their positions. Ray having to lap these cars now. Ooh. that was close. There was a car rejoining there rather unsafely. I'm sure one which will be looked at by the stewards, potentially a contact which has happened there. That'll be a reckless driving, I have no doubt, given by the stewards. So unfortunately we had to catch it on stream, but that's a dive down on a blue flag from Zhao Ray, trying to gain that time on the Nissan in front. It's now just Kartovic versus Ray. Have dropped back slightly from the original 0.9 seconds, but still 1 second back, gaining time in this corner as well as the Nissan in front runs all the way to the outside. That was I believe the Coleman Nissan which was just requested in the chat. Yes, it was running slightly wide there, so unfortunately as soon as you asked for it to be seen, we saw it go wide on the corner, but they're doing well at the moment in P25, struggling a bit with the weather it seems, but they started in P29, so they have gained 3 positions since the start of this race. They've ran the wet tyres for the start of this race, 40 minutes in at the moment. They'll have to be pitting in the next 25 minutes or so. And of course the Nissan, difficult car to be racing in these days, and of course you have to get it right for the weather and get the tyres right as well. Kartovic up front, that's the second Nissan that we have on the grid today. He's certainly done the weather and the setup right, managing to maintain that P3 position since the start of this race. Is under pressure from Joao Ray now though. You can see the Nissan just in front of Joao Ray, that's his P3 target. Is Dato running? Let me check the teams that are running on today's race. I can't see the name Dato on my timing sheet. That was just a brief run through though, so I apologise if I've missed it. If you have a car number, I can switch to them and do some commentating over it. But of course, I can only see what's on my timing sheet. Picano into the pit lane now, doing his stop early on in the stint, trying to gain those advantage of the dry tyre. Of course, half an hour until the rain becomes light again, so that become wet rather quickly. So of course, if they are switching over to the dry tyre, they'd better make the most of it before switching out into the wet again. Of course, you have to be confident in the weather here on ACC, especially when it is a variable amount of wet weather. Now heading down the pit lane. It seems like they have dry tyres on that BMW. Yes, they do, making a slight bit of contact with the pit lane there. They'll be heading out of the pit lane in about P13, P14. And of course, trying to be gaining as much time as they can on those dry tyres before having to switch back out onto wets. Joao Ray, of course, now in P3 as a result of Picano entering the pit lane. Kartovic has a 35-second gap to Senatore up front. Joao Ray losing out a little bit of time there on the very anti-alta chicane. Back down to 1 second gap. The Nissan, of course, able to take the curbs a lot more confidently than the Ferrari can do on this track. Further back down the grid, plenty of position gains, of course, plenty of cars going into the pit lane now, potentially swapping out those wet tyres. They will be fairly hard to use on the rather greasy track that we have now. Zach Webb looking to the inside there, but no position to be made. I believe Zach Webb has already done their pit stops, so they are on dry tyres for this second stint, looking to gain a place on the BMW in front, which is also on dry tyres. I believe there's a Ferrari in front, that's Majirek in that Ferrari, making the sausage curbs a little bit too much there. Zach Webb able to make a gain out of that. It's currently 3 wide into the Tursa corner. A little bit of contact on the rear there as well. As they now head in towards Sector 3. Zach Webb, of course, gained that position. Made an early pit stop, so has dropped down a few places since where they were before. Of course, now looking to gain these back up and is, of course, on dry tyres, so looking to gain the time, but they did get a worse exit out of the Acqua Minerale corner. And of course, now drag race with the BMW. It's going to be side by side through the Variante Alta chicane. It's going to be Mustang leading BMW out of it. BMW potentially getting a better exit. They're looking to the inside, getting it closed off by Zach Webb. As they now go breaking into the final 2 corners. No position changes there. More drivers in the pit lane. Lay in the pit lane. Cataldo in the pit lane. That's the number 155 Mustang, who we've seen quite a bit of. A Damchick in the pit lane now as well. So plenty of position changes as a result of that. Bugari in P7 now, putting pressure on Piazza. Piazza in P6 at the moment. Bugari, unfortunately, seeming like they made a mistake there. The rear's just getting a little bit too unsteady on the track there. Finding a safe position to rejoin. They're going to be demoted into no demotion actually. They just dropped back 10 seconds from where they originally were, and of course heading into the pit lane now, potentially swapping out into dry tyres. Piazza, of course, we were on board with them for quite a bit this first stint. They started in P1, they're now down in P6. They chose the dry tyres early on. They'll be benefiting from the dry tyres now, although the dry tyres will certainly be a lot more used than they would have been at the start. The dry line is certainly on the track now, though. You can see where the dry line is compared to the wet line. He's going to be trying to stick to that as much as he can, put some temperature and some pressure in those dry tyres before he comes in and finishes his stint. It'd be interesting to see what Piazza does for tyre changes in this pit stop that's coming up. Of course, you can see the weather on the top right is scheduled to be becoming light rain in about half an hour or so. So we'll be seeing, of course, the switch back towards the wet tyres. Fastest lap of this race so far has been set by Picano, no surprise about that one. And the number 322 BMW has set a 146.060. Of course, the start of this race has been fairly wet, and of course they are on dry tyres now, and the dry line is indeed there. So of course I expect that lap time to increase. Schulger also in the pit lane now. Team OBR and the number 246 Aston Martin. Dropping down positions as a result, of course, but they'll be able to gain some when they come out. Oliver Flynn for the Project Low-Key Lamborghini, looking to gain a place now on Kajdas, the number 169 Aston Martin in front. It's a battle for P29 at the moment. Oliver Flynn, not the most fortunate race so far, started in P20, currently in P10, so dropped down about 10 places since the start of this race. Looking to try and gain as much as they can throughout the rest, though. It's 6 hours long, plenty of time to gain those positions. Daniel Blair left the pit lane not too long ago and already has quite a significant amount of damage on that Aston Martin, so it's unfortunate to see. It seems like they've had some incident at some point. Quite a significant amount of damage on the front of that car. You can see just how much the bonnet is lifting up. That'll severely impact how the Aston Martin is driving, so potentially Daniel will be returning to the pit lane to be repairing that damage and then coming back out. Of course, we'll lose a lot of positions as a result of that. Martin Kuj is looking for positioning at the moment, has done that so far for Vince Cuba Sport into P20. Mazurek dropped down in P21. Plenty of battles for them so far. Hamza Badir and Aiden Tan currently in the pit lane doing their pit stop, losing of course positions as a result. About 15 minutes left of the first hour's stint timer though, so we'll be seeing the rest of the field come in and do their pit stop, those at least who haven't done so already. Garray in P1 at the moment for the Valkyrie Performance Ferrari. Started, of course, in P12, currently in P11. Hasn't pitted yet. Has, of course, yet to do the pit stop. Has 15 minutes to do said pit stop, so, of course, we'll be trying to gain as much time as they can throughout. This seems like they're confident in the car at the moment, making some very good lap times. Last lap was a 150.042, so slightly slower than the rest of the field. Potentially a mistake that was had on there, but they've certainly got the pace to carry on, or at least they believe they've got the pace to carry on. The next driver that has done the pit stop, Vincenzo Senatore, of course, was 34 seconds ahead of everyone else before they did the pit stop. So, of course, they've got plenty of time to prove that they've got that time. They are the first driver that has already done a pit stop. Sebastian Picano, second driver that has already done a pit stop. Both drivers spent 1 minute 14 seconds stopped in the pit lane, so a similar amount of time spent in the pit lane. Seems like Picano is about 30 seconds back, maybe about 24-25 seconds back from Senatore, so similar time gaps as it was to before the pit stop. Maybe a slight advantage to Picano. Trying to navigate the traffic of Steg at the moment though. Steg having a blistering pace or a blistering race so far at least. Starting in P32, currently in P5, of course, just having dropped out of P4. Still yet to do the pit stop, of course, but 27 positions gained since the start of this race is an impressive number, and hopefully we see that number increase. Jana Boucher has switched over to Christian Boucher. It's now Christian Boucher in control of that number 310 Porsche. We've chosen to go for the dry tyres for the second stint, following along with the rest of the field. P8 at the moment. We're in about P6, P5 before the pit stop happened. That Mustang braking too late into that one and gaining the place back. That was Rosenboom that did that one. Has returned the place now though, and hasn't gained an advantage out of that one. Stewards might want to look at it either way, but of course, promoted back down or demoted back down is P9. Boucher back into P8. Boucher 2 seconds to Usmanov, the next target for them in front. Wojtek Steg is now in the pit lane, doing their pit stop. Will be, nevertheless, no doubt, switching over into the dry tyres as well. Tom Morris-Jones now putting pressure on Kowalski. Kowalski we saw having a battle with another driver earlier on. Slight bit of door banging there on the entrances to that corner. Tom Morris-Jones having to back out of the fight there. Not able to gain anything out of it. We'll have to run down towards the Tamburello curves now. As the inside line has to give it back to the McLaren. We'll have a better line out of the final corner though. Be side by side in towards Tosa. Seems like that position was gained there for one. McLaren once again making contact and gaining the position as a result. We saw a similar thing earlier. We've got 35 seconds worth of penalties on board at the moment. Of course, they will have to serve those when they come in for their next pit stop. Tom Morris-Jones unfortunately losing out the position there that they just gained. Of course, there will be more penalties, of course, given to Kowalski. Hopefully they improve throughout the rest of this race. We do have a penalty point counter that if you exceed, you are disqualified from the race. So if you are too dangerous, it's potentially you don't finish the race, and Kowalski seems like they are nearing that number. Keeping our eye on things anyways. Tom Morris-Jones, very strong position that was made out of that one. Kowalski actually that's just on the side of the track there, losing out unfortunately position to both Tom Morris-Jones and Zach Webb as a result of that. So potentially make a mistake into the outer chicanes. Zach Webb, one of the first to do a pit stop, is now putting pressure on Tom Morris-Jones. About 1.1 seconds between these two. Further back down the grid, Asta putting some pressure on the Audi in front. Fortunately having a few minor twitches and mistakes into the Acqua Minerale corner there. Now under pressure from Carriera behind. I apologise that I'm not going to pronounce the last name of Astas there. Yeah, I don't want to butcher names. Of course, you don't want to tell me how it's pronounced, so we'll give it a go. But we're going to try it. Up front, Hamza Bader. We saw gaining a lot of positions earlier on in the race. He's now on the rear of Adamczyk, looking to gain as much as he can in the meantime. Adamczyk starting in P23 up into P19, 4 positions gained since the start of this race. Hamza Bader running wide into turn 1, but has started in P35. In P20 at the moment, so of course 15 positions gained since the start of this race, so plenty of positions gained for Hamza, and he's looking for one more on Adamczyk. We'll keep our eye on things there to see what happens. Zach Webb is currently the fastest in a straight line, fastest in the speed trap at least. 269 kilometers an hour, faster than everyone else on the grid. Not sure entirely where the speed trap is here at Imola, unfortunately, but good to know that Zach Webb is the fastest. Of course, Zach Webb was the first to come in and do a pit stop and swap out into dry tyres, so potentially was able to gain advantage at that point. Now looking to catch up to Tom Morris-Jones though. Hamza Badir still 1 second back from Adamczyk at the moment. Good to see how dry this track has become. It's gone from being a dry line to a dry track. There's still some points where the track is decently wet. Of course, the curbs will have a lot of water standing on them. You see the dry line still here on the start-finish straight as well. It's scheduled to rain within the next 10 minutes. Of course, these positions and these advantages will be changing around. People might potentially be going in for an early pit stop once again, swapping over to the wet tyres, trying to keep a hand on that. Of course, Zach Webb did do an early pit stop. They are currently 25 minutes into their stint timer. They pitted at a similar point during the first stint, so potentially going to be doing the same again to hop onto the wet tyre for this second stint. But at the moment, of course, in P9, gained 24 positions since the start of this race. It's been a very successful race and strategy for Zach Webb, to be honest. So we'll be seeing what they can do throughout the rest. Hamza Badir 0.5 seconds now back from Adamczyk in front. We'll jump on board with the P1, P2 battle though, as Rosario Piazza is finally looking back onto his P1 position. Of course, hasn't done a pit stop yet, neither has João Ray. So João Ray, for the Valkyrie Performance Ferrari, is defending this P1 position for position on track. Both drivers brake at a similar point into the final two corners. João Ray unfortunately running a little bit too wide and losing the position to Piazza there. Piazza will of course be coming into the pit lane within the next 6 minutes or so due to the stint timer. João Ray will have to do the same. So it'll be interesting to see what comes out of that. Good to see Rosario Piazza back in P1. Of course, we'll be trying to gain as much as they can out of the dry tyres now. They started on the dry tyres, of course, used them quite a bit during the wet start for this race. And it's now just trying to maintain them until the end of the stint. Senatore, who was in P1 before they did a pit stop, is only 4 seconds back from Bray, who is only, of course, 2 seconds back from Piazza as well. So there's about 6 seconds between Piazza and Senatore. Piazza, of course, P1 due to no pit stop. Senatore P1 of those who have done a pit stop. That's just a comparison for the different leaders of the race. We'll see where Piazza comes out of the pit lane. Of course, they'll probably be switching back on to the dry tyre as well. And then they will be trying to extract as much as they can out of the car. Had 90 incidents in this race so far, so plenty of battles, plenty of action has happened. Of course, we've seen quite a lot of penalties being applied to the drivers during the first stint. Nothing too major so far. We've got a 5-second penalty for Steve on the left hand side of your screens. I'm not sure whether there's anything else. Senatore has gained that position now as a result of straight line speed on João Ray. So that'll be Piazza that is next on the chopping block. Piazza, of course, will be having to come into the pit lane over the next 4 minutes anyways, so likely do a pit stop before they make a position change. Of course, João Ray, who did just lose that position, has been on those tyres since the start of this race, so that was why that position gain was so easy. Of course, Senatore having a very, very strong race so far, 153 1:45.3, sorry, was their fastest lap so far. And Zhao Ray actually being put under pressure from a blue flag now as well, showing what those tyres are on. I have no doubt that over the next 3 laps, these guys will be coming into the pit lane to see what they can do with the tyre changes. We'll be keeping an eye on the weather at the top right to see what they can do with the weather as well. Of course, if it goes on to full wet weather towards the end of that half an hour, they'll probably switch over to a stint that'll last them just half an hour. Of course, they'll change the fuel so that it matches, potentially go on a wet tyre since the beginning. Of course, it is still wet on track, it's just marked as damp on the track map. Of course, the dry tyres are faster, but only slightly faster, so we'll be seeing what these drivers change out into. Certainly making the most of the stint time. There's Zach Webb, 0.6 seconds back from Tom Morris-Jones though. We saw this battle happen earlier on in the race. Been separated for a while and now they're back together. Zach Webb gaining that slipstream, trying to gain that advantage over Tom Morris-Jones. Of course, Zach Webb on older drier tyres than Morris-Jones will be. It seems like that's not stopping him. Certainly breaking late into Minerali there. Losing now a little bit of time as well. Adam in the team WRT number 113 at BMW, putting pressure on the fellow BMW in front. 0.6 seconds between these guys exists as well. Further back, Fabio Carriera, and the number 200 DMF course Ferrari, also putting pressure on Jacob Awich. 0.5 seconds in front. That's the Aston Martin that you see going through turn 1 in front. There's a battle for P20 at the moment, so top 20 is going to be decided by this position. Aston Martin certainly getting a little bit unsteady on the exit of that corner. Nothing too major though. Carriera making a dive up the inside at Tosa. And they're both now actually being lapped, so it's 3 wide as they head towards Piratella. That's Kartovic on the right hand side of your screens. It seems like the number 41 Aston Martin had the advantage on the straight, wasn't able to take the advantage during the corner, and that position has now been gained by Fabio Carriera up into P20 and is already a second ahead of Jacob Awich in the Aston Martin. So a very successful move there from Carriera, leaving it until the corner, getting a better exit on the corner and just gaining the position beautifully. Up front then, Ray and Piazza are in the pit lane. Of course, the stint timer that they have ends in 44 seconds, so of course they have to pit at some point in those 40 seconds. They're in the pits now though, so that stint timer will be paused and they'll be doing their pit stops. Those guys will be the last of the first stint to do a pit stop. Of course, Senatore is now back in the P1 position for the second stint. 16 seconds advantage over Bicano. Bicano then also 34 seconds ahead of Stanislav Kartovic as well in the number 777 Nissan. We'll jump back aboard with Zach Webb, still looking for that position gain on Tom Morris-Jones, still putting that pressure on, still looking for a mistake to be made. Got a chat. Good race, certainly is a good race so far. It's a bit different with this weather, of course, variable between damp and wet. Has made an interesting choice for pit stops and tyre choices. Zach Webb, of course, did an early pit stop about 20 to 25 minutes into his first stint. Swapped over to dry tyres, did the rest of the first stint on the dry tyres. Is still on that second stint now on the dry tyres, of course. We'll have to pit relatively soon. They've got about 30 minutes left of the stint timer. Looking to gain a position on Morris-Jones at the moment. Then we'll switch to Helicam and see if there's any position change on the exit of this one. Using a little bit too much curb there, dragging them in keeping them there, getting them a worse exit. And Zach Webb brakes just too late for that left-hander there, missing the braking point, missing the apex, having to run wide. Tom Morris-Jones now fighting against a blue flag for that position. That was a little bit close there. Blue flag has just continued straight into the barrier, interestingly. But Zach Webb has got past now. Has lost out significantly as a result of both running wide and, of course, the blue flag is now 2 seconds back. But we'll keep our eye on things to make sure that battle continues. Unfortunately, that was the closest battle which we had on grid. Of course, that's now changed to Joao Ray and Cataldo. Cataldo, the Mustang which you see behind the POV car. The POV car of Joao Ray was, of course, in P1 before they did the pit stops. Managed to gain advantage, though. Medica is the one that switched out for Piazza in the Tempo Esports Ferrari. These guys have switched over into, I believe, the wet tyres now. So, of course, started the race on the dry tyres, lost out quite significantly as a result, and have switched back onto the wets now, keeping it consistent on those wets and trying to gain back the time that they lost. Boucher now looking to gain a place on Davis, and that was done successfully through the Villeneuve chicanes. Not done entirely though. Chris Davis still flashing the lights, still saying, look, I'm here, leave me some space. Give me a drag race down into the fast left-hander. Chris Davis will have the inside, it'll be braking at a similar point. A little bit of contact on the apex. It's going to be still side by side though. The Porsche very unsteady on the outside there, not gaining the traction on the curb. And Chris Davis able to maintain his position, so plenty of good battling there between those two. Of course, that Porsche, nice to see out on grid. You don't see much of it nowadays. It is a very old Porsche, so that's why you don't see it, but it's good to see in strong hands of Boucher as well, putting in a right battle with the Mustang of Chris Davis. Unfortunately getting a little bit unsteady on the curbs, meaning that they lost the position they were fighting for. We'll jump back to Catadlo and to Ray though. Catadlo looking to gain that speed on Ray. You can see Ray just in front, potentially trying to put a bit of pressure and temperature in their tyres as it's heading towards the wet weather again now though, so it will be dry tyres getting on the worse side of things. Now breaking down in towards the final two corners. The blue flag on the inside with some connection problems. I'll probably flag that to the stewards to see if they are aware of it. And hopefully nothing major happens as a result. Tom Morris-Jones now battling with Medica. Obviously Medica was the one which was driven by Piazza for the first stint of this race. Started in P1, dropped back due to the dry tyres that they had. Now in P6, looking to gain back those 6 or so positions into their P1 spot. Obviously a lot of time to be gained though, now under pressure from Tom Morris-Jones as well. Back on board with Aiden Tan. Number 23 is looking for a move on the number 113 BMW. Goes for the outside at Tosa. Isn't able to gain the position there though. A little bit of slight door banging happened in the middle of that corner. It'll be a drag race down towards the next fast left-hander. Aston Martin getting a much better line through there. Is going to be racing down towards the Acqua Minerale section of the double right-handers, followed by an uphill acceleration towards the Variante Alta chicane. Aston Martin going to be using as much of those curbs as they can. You can see just how much advantage is gained by using them, and also lost by getting it wrong. Of course, if you use too much of the curbs, it'll unsettle your car. Use too little of the curbs, you won't gain the time. Catadlo in another Aston Martin. I think that's Catadlo. It might be Senatore actually. Senatore gaining the position on the blue flag there, gaining the time as a result of the line across the curbs. Very successful race for Senatore and Martignone at the moment. Martignone not been in the car yet. I don't believe Senatore is taking this car to a strong P1 position, which is leading by 53 seconds so far. So Stanislav Kartovic in the P2 position at the moment, 54 seconds back from P1. So P1 in a very comfortable spot at the moment, just trying to keep it consistent in this weather. I certainly believe the wet tyre is the optimum tyre at the moment. Gretnov looking to put pressure on Godovini. This was, of course, the number 141 McLaren, which was driven originally by Kovaleski. We saw plenty of action from that McLaren earlier. Hopefully some more cleaner action now. 0.7 seconds between those, 0.6 between Flo Holland for Chaos Racing and the driver in front. Yellow flag for the number 12 Ford Performance. Aston Martin, they're waiting off track. It's a dangerous position to be waiting in, but it seems like they are okay at the moment. Have to keep an eye on things. Hopefully the stewards are on that. Picano now looking for his next position. Of course, Picano had a very strong start to this race. Seems to have lost a bit as a result of the pit stops though. It's now down in P9. Did originally have the fastest lap of the race. Of course, that was changed during the dry spot that we had. And Picano is now 0.5 seconds back from Cataldo in front. Cataldo is that Mustang that you see in front. The Aston Martin, I believe, is a blue flag there, so hopefully no issues come from this, and seems like they're getting past nice and safely there. Garner getting that advantage out of Acqua Minerale. Using as much of the curbs as possible. BMW, of course, another car that can take those very nicely. And the Mustang of Cataldo just allowing that position to be gained now. Pulling off to the side, letting it be gone. It's fair enough. 4 hours and 3/4 left of the race. Plenty of time for position changes to be made. That's a blue flag for car number 200 as well. That's Fabio Carriera having a mistake into the final 2 corners. Back on track now though. Nothing major. Daniel Blake looking to gain on a damn shake next. 0.5 seconds between those, drifting through that final corner. Jump back aboard with Cataldo. Of course, Cataldo just got overtaken by Picano. They're looking to gain back that time though. Position change there for Zaturka, the number 216 Ferrari that you see in front. Took the position from Vaktaricic in the number 88 BMW. Battle for P30 at the moment, so P30 has been taken by Zaturka. And Lucas, who we're on board with, obviously dropping back down into P31, but looking to gain back that time, looking to gain back that position. Joao Ray now putting pressure on Tom Morris-Jones as well. Seems like Tom Morris-Jones had a bad Acqua Minerale, lost out a bit of time. Joao Ray now putting pressure on Tom. Looking to the outside, looking to the inside. Potentially going to be a dive to the inside. Yes, it is. Dive late on the brakes. Ferrari's going to outrun that. The Mustang is going to get the advantage of the switchback there. But of course, we'll have the wider line for the final corner. So it'll be a drag race between the Mustang and the Ferrari. We'll stick on board with Helicam to see what they can do in towards turn one. Of course, we'll have the inside line for Tom, so he will have less distance to cover. The Ferrari has, of course, a slipstream known as the BMW of Picano also getting involved in this. So you can see Ray looking for a side-by-side action through there, potentially going to lose out to Picano now. That has the inside from the next corner. Tom Morris-Jones having to go wide. Keeps it on track though, but does lose the position to Picano as well. So that's 2 positions in the first corner. Unfortunately lost by Tom Morris-Jones there. Taking the smart decision to keep it safe and on track though. Not gaining any contact, so keeping the car nice and safe. And of course, nothing too major of disadvantage. That position in front is still being fought between Jarrell Ray and Picano now. So Picano on the outside looking to get the slipstream. Looking to gain the speed down straight towards the fast left-hander. The Ferrari goes slightly wide, will be unsettled on those curbs a little bit, so we'll have the advantage to the BMW side by side in towards the Aquaminerale. BMW does go wide though, has the outside, the faster line for the exit of it though, and it seems like Picano has gained that spot as a result. It's a bit of a flash of the lights there of discontent from Jarrell Ray, of course, losing out that place. Picano, of course, a very strong driver. Set fastest lap in the first sector and the first sprint of this race so far, though. So Jarrell Ray now looking to cling onto that and gain it back. Further behind, you can see the 2 Mustangs. That is also a battle for position. Tom Morris-Jones also now under pressure from Cataldo. Tom Morris-Jones, we saw just lose 2 positions on the previous lap, is now looking to defend from Cataldo. Nose to tail as close as possible between Cataldo and Tom Morris-Jones there. A little bit of a bump on the rear. Cataldo actually missing out a little bit from that. Backing out to not cause further contact. Of course, the smart decision to make. Tom Morris-Jones gaining about a second worth of time there on Cataldo. So that battle has been delayed for a little while. Jarrell Ray still on the rear of Picano, but Picano has certainly started to spread out and gain time on Ray. Further back down, Adamczyk looking for a position change on the number 200 TMF course, Carriera. Carriera losing that position, is now under threat from Bealey. It's going to be side by side out of the exit of Tosa. Aston Martin seems to have advantage on that outside line though. It's going to be single file for the next left-hander. Right to the apex, using the most of the exit curbs they can. And that was a position gain for P18 there by Daniel Blay. Carriera nice trying to cling on to that. 0.5 seconds back. Submarine chat asking about 340. That's the Chaos Racing Flo Holland, number 340 Ferrari. That was a team consisting of Noel Mazurek and Flo Holland. These guys started in P21, they're now in P21, so no positions gained or lost so far. Of course, can't complain about that. That's your team. Good to see you here in the commentary. Of course, good to see your team on the screen as well. Good race so far, good first stint from yourself. And 9.1 seconds back from P20 at the moment, under a bit of pressure from, I believe that's a faster car behind, so that position will have to be ceded soon enough. Happy about your first stint? Yeah, I would be happy about that first stint as well. Very successful first stint, keeping it in P21, handing the car over to Holland in a very good position. Holland's keeping that going. Be interesting to see where you guys finish. Hopefully a top 20, potentially even more. Hamza Badir was one that someone had pointed out as being on a fast lap, or at least being on a good drive so far. On fire, amazing. Keep going. Yep, indeed. Hamza Badir, of course, started this race in P35, is in P11 at the moment, so plenty of positions gained, 24 to be precise, and is only 6.7 seconds back from Jan Bashir in front. I think Jan Bashir has made another pit stop. Yes, they have switched over to potentially the dry tyres, which is an interesting choice to go for. But they are still going strong nevertheless. 23 seconds behind P9 they are, but gaining time actually on Hamza Badir. Hamza Badir on the dry tyres as well. P21 to P37, then P19. Yeah. Very fantastic job in that first stint. Keep that going for the rest of the race. Will certainly be a top 20, top 10 potentially. Further back down, P30, Vaktarik in the number 88 BMW. Only 0.9 seconds back from Zaturka at the moment. We jumped on board these guys earlier as they were having a battle. It's slightly spread out a little bit more now. 1 second between them, but nothing to measure. It's still, of course, in contention for that position. Keeping our eye on things. Of course, these guys, P30, lap 40, about 5 laps back from the leader. Leader, by the way, 1 minute ahead of P2. Stanislav Kartovic, of course, in the Nissan, potentially falling a little bit due to the weather changes in that Nissan not being able to maintain the strength that they usually have. But Senatore certainly making the most of it in the Aston Martin. Imola, one of my personal favourite circuits, especially in the Aston Martin. So, of course, good to see an Aston Martin winning the race. There are plenty of Aston Martins on the field. You can see from P15 to P18. There are 4 Aston Martins, P20 and Aston Martin as well, but majority of the grid is made up by Ford Mustangs, BMWs and Ferraris. All interesting choices here at Imola. This race, of course, is part of the 2026 Endurance Series. The 2026 Endurance Series is a endurance series throughout the entire 2026 season. Endurance race every 3 weeks. The next one coming up is the 7 hours of the Nürburgring GP circuit. That is in the pre-2019 cars, so cars that were manufactured before 2019 will be racing in that one. It'll be a very nice one to hear at least. And of course here it will be racing at the Nürburgring GP circuit, so it'll be nice to see them going through the first few corners. After that, it was just announced today, we've got the 4 hours of Hungaroring. That's on the 16th of May. As mentioned, every 3 weeks there is an endurance race just like the one that you've seen today. We have plenty of action on the field here at ACM. We also run up to 5 sprint races every week. Currently we only run 3. The attendance for a few of the other ones has dropped off slightly, so we're going back, having a look at what we can do and try and reinvigorate some life into those seasons. But of course, we do run 2 other endurance series as well. We have the NLS Endurance Series, which again, every 3 weeks we run an endurance race, and that is specifically at the Nordschleife. So you have races from 4 to 24-hour races. The next one coming up for that one is the weekend. Is next weekend. It's 6 hours of the Nordschleife, but that one has a 4 times time multiplier, so it will be a full 24-hour race in game, but of course 6 hours in real life. That one has a full grid signed up to it, so it has 90 people currently signed up to attend, and of course it will be good to see everyone go through the first corner, hopefully cleanly, but we'll be seeing how that turns out next weekend. Make sure to join us on the stream if you want to check that out, and of course if you want to sign up, acm-racing.com, plenty of events on, plenty of people to race with, and of course finding your position and gaining those wins. Weekend after that, 12 hours of Imola. We're returning to this circuit for a 12-hour race. This one is part of the 2026 Charity Endurance Series, so this is a fundraiser for the Air Ambulance Service. A fantastic charity, of course, helping to save lives. So, of course, it will be a fantastic race to take part in and commentate over, and hopefully raise a lot of money from as well. That's on the 18th of April. 2 weeks from today, we'll be back at the Imola. Of course, 12 hours, so double the length of this one, and is looking like it will be clear weather at the moment, but of course we will see about that. Back on board with the action. Zach Webb, 0.2 seconds back from Badir. Badir was one of the ones pointed out as having a fire performance so far. Seems like they have dropped slightly from the last time I looked at them, but of course did just lose that position to Zach Webb as well. They did cede that position, so they allow Zach Webb to go through without any effort. Of course, 4 hours and a half left of this race, plenty fine to do that. Could be the smart thing to do as well. There's no point battling and potentially getting damage if you know that you're going to lose the position anyways. So we'll be seeing what comes out of that. Stop go 10 was for the qualifying. You can view the incidents and the verdicts of the stewards on the ACM website, acm-racing.com/stewarding. I, of course, have not been stewarding this race. I've been commentating it, so I don't know the status of incidents. These gaps certainly have started to spread out a little bit though. Hamza Badir seems to be the closest gap on track. There is Suetov, who has unfortunately had a little bit of an incident there. Significant damage on the front of that McLaren, having to return to the garage even, is in P25 at the moment, but I have a feeling that that will drop a few places at least. We have 33 on the grid remaining at the moment. Steg is the driver in P33, which is interesting because Steg was running in P4 before the pit stop, so has unfortunately lost out a significant bit of time in the recent half an hour. Martin Cibor looking for a position gain on Carriera. That's a P19 secured there, and it seems like the Mustang behind, I believe that's a faster car of Chris Davis, or Chris Davis's team driving that. Chris Davis is still driving it. Had to take some avoiding action there to miss out the Carriera Ferrari there, but seems like no major impact occurred. Aston Martin with some connection issues there. Hopefully they get resolved soon enough. Share running slightly too deep into that corner as well there though. As we are coming to an hour and a half into this race, the gaps has, of course, started to spread out. I'm going to head across into the stewarding box, as I believe one of the stewards is going to be heading away soon. So thank you very much for watching the start of this race. We might be back later on in the race if the action is still there. Of course, thank you very much for watching. Do join us next weekend for the 6 hours of Nordschleife. Of course, the full grid at Nordschleife will be very fun to watch, particularly into turn 1. Hopefully they all keep it safe, but of course we will see next week. If you want to join ACM, we've got sprint races, we've got endurance races, we've got everything that you want for ACC. That is acm-racing.com. It gives you all of our upcoming events, all of our previous events, all of our race data. We have 600,000 laps on there available for you to see, driven by just over 7,000 drivers. So it'll come and join us, be one of the members on the commentary next time. And we will hopefully see you on the winners podium soon enough. Thank you very much for watching today. I have been Harry Goswell, your host and your commentator for this race. I will see you later, and if not, I will see you next week for the 6 hours of Nordschleife. Thank you very much. See you soon.